Hey, thanks for checking out The Solid Verbal. Now would be a great time to subscribe to the channel for college football content all off season long. In the East, let's talk about Georgia, because they're still fascinating to me because of some coaching moves, obviously with the end of Stetson Bennett. He's still alive with the end of his tenure at Georgia. That's a correction there. Yeah, I think Georgia's fascinating with the number of players over the past 2 years that have been drafted highly. Yeah, Georgia's definitely, even though they are playing a different sport than most of us or most of the teams we root for, I still think they're fascinating.
I'm not going to play the ding 4 times, but I have 4 points of fascination with Georgia.
Let's dive in.
Georgia's the 2-time defending national champion. They went 15-0 last season. Their over-under is 11.5, just to get that stuff out of the way so you know where we're coming from.
Yeah.
The first point of fascination is whether Georgia can become the first team to threepeat.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Since the 30s. Minnesota threepeated in the 30s. Now, a lot of folks have been talking in the preseason that they think that Minnesota team could take this Georgia team.
Everybody's been saying that.
I'm on the fence about that.
Well, all
personally.
your Notre Dame friends were watching that game in the stands.
That was me, but I'm on the fence about that.
Yeah.
But just to put it in historical context, that's where this Georgia team's at.
Okay.
They could threepeat. They're probably the favorite to threepeat. The subheading to that is now that they've got the easiest schedule in the SEC, and it's not really even close. It just isn't.
With an Oklahoma cancellation as the asterisk, yes.
Oklahoma cancellation as the asterisk, sure. But 11.5, I would confidently bet the over. Wow. Because here is the schedule. Wow. Week 1, UT Martin. Week 2, Ball State. Week 3, South Carolina. Week 4, UAB. Ooh. That's 4-0. That's 4-0.
Yeah.
Week 5 on the road at Auburn. Week 6 at home against Kentucky. Week 7 on the road at Vandy before they have a bye week. Probably 7-0. As they go into week 9, it's the neutral sider against Florida, home against Tennessee and Ole Miss. Week 12 and 13 on the road at Tennessee and Georgia Tech. Even if you feel like that Tennessee game is maybe more of a crapshoot this year, I don't really feel that way, but if you do, that seems to be the best team on the schedule. They're still not going below 11 wins, which is not happening. So I am all in on Georgia going undefeated again, 12-0.
Which is the game? Where is the danger zone? Where is the trap door? Where is the snake in the toilet? I think it's at Auburn.
Not with where Auburn's at. Maybe Kentucky.
Well, first of all, we don't know where Auburn's at. This is a fully new team, new staff, everything.
Maybe I'll throw Kentucky out there. I'm actually pretty high on Kentucky.
Okay. But that's in Athens?
The game is in Athens,
yeah.
Maybe Tennessee on the road, week 12. I don't know. After Ole Miss, maybe they're dealing with some body blow theory after playing Ole Miss.
Sure.
But it's hard for me to find the losses here. I read through this thing. I keep waiting for it to get harder, and it doesn't. Georgia is minus 500 in the betting markets to win the SEC East, which means,
I'm sitting here trying to make a Viagra joke, right?
I know you are. I know you are.
Okay.
I would expect nothing less.
We'll circle
Georgia's
back
minus
at the end
500.
of the episode. Yeah.
Minus 500, which means you got to put up 50 to win 10.
Yeah.
That's where Vegas is at. So the schedule, undeniably easy. The subheading is that Georgia also probably is the best team in college football. And it's not because of the schedule. It's a mutually exclusive point.
Yeah.
It's almost in spite of the schedule. And to that end, I think, is where we start talking about changes on offense, which is what you alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's got a new quarterback. They've got a new old offensive coordinator. I believe that Carson Beck is going to be the starter this season. We've heard nothing but good things about him through the spring, all throughout last season too. But I think he's probably the guy. Backup last year, he's got the most experience. Seems like he's held that lead over Brock Vandegrift and Gunnar Stockton the whole way through. Georgia's got really good quarterback depth. If it's not Carson Beck, or if there's an injury to Carson Beck, they've got guys clearly behind him who can come in and probably fill that role admirably. Carson Beck, by the way, 6'5", a former 5-star. He's got the physical tools that Stetson Bennett did not.
Mm-hmm.
The new coordinator is Mike Bobo. And I say new in quotes because Mike Bobo was there before. Georgia fans were not exactly thrilled when they heard Mike Bobo, but Mike Bobo is a guy who the last time he was there was scoring 41 points a game with Hudson Mason at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He took full advantage of Nick Chubb when Nick Chubb was playing running back. So I think they'll be just fine. I think they will stick to the formula of being a very, very physical team. a team that is able to run you into Bolivian, as our friend Mike Tyson would say.
Mm-hmm.
And if Carson Beck gives them a little bit more in the passing game with over-the-top stuff, with increased arm strength, with it maybe a better cast of wide receivers, then so be it. We will probably find that out a little bit later on in the season. But the ground game will again be ground zero for the project, because this is one of the best 3 offensive lines in America. Whether it's Dijon Edwards or Kendall Milton, they will eat. They will open up lanes for that passing game. And that's where Dominic Lovett and Ra Thomas, I think, come in. They're 2 big-time transfer threats that came over from Missouri and Mississippi State, respectively. They've also still got Ladd McConkey, who's there for like a 15th season. And, oh, by the way, Brock Bowers.
I was going to say, what about the best tight end in the country, who has been the best tight end in the country the last 3 years?
I was building up to that point.
Yeah, okay.
Brock Bowers.
Okay.
So, basically, as long as Georgia isn't a disaster at quarterback, they're going to be ridiculous on offense.
Okay.
And you already knew that, because they're 2-time defending champions and they recruit like crazy. But that shows where we're at. They're not going to get any worse on offense because of a change at coordinator or a quarterback.
Okay, so I'll invoke what I did with Hendon Hooker. Let's remember that Stetson Bennett was excellent for Georgia. Is he one of the greatest quarterbacks to play college football ever? He is not. Was he one of the greatest, if not the greatest Georgia quarterback ever? Yes. Is he the best Georgia quarterback of at least the modern era in the heights he took this team and the efficiency with which he played? So that's who they're replacing. That's who we're replacing, an absolute gamer that, yes, started out kind of poorly in a couple of national championships, but made it work. Or in a national championship. Last year, he was pretty good. If Carson Beck is good, Georgia will win the national championship again. Likely. If he has growing pains but shows flashes, I think they could lose a game. Not because they're less than Kentucky or Auburn. Auburn's a rivalry game on the road. Kentucky's the week after that, is it not?
No.
That's where I would be a little bit scared. 4% scared? 11% scared? Something like that. But, yeah, I think you nailed everything else. They should be fine on defense.
Defensively, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
They obviously lose some big names. Jalen Carter, Keely Ringo, Nolan Smith. Bear Alexander transferred out.
Yeah, Nolan Smith didn't play half of last year anyway, yeah.
Right, but the thing with Georgia, and I talked about this last November, and I try to bring this up every chance I get, Georgia rotates guys in so much that even the guys now who are the quote-unquote starters had experience last year. Even if they weren't the full-time guy.
For sure.
They just rotate so many guys through that they're never really at risk of a huge drop-off on defense. Unless there are catastrophic injuries and you can't plan for that type of thing. But they're so good and they're so talented and they have such a heavy rotation that they're never quite starting over at a position group. So they'll be fine. They'll be absolutely fine on defense. It'll be one of the best defenses in the country. I have questions about the offense as well. Obviously, anytime you swap out quarterbacks and coordinators, things can go sideways a little bit. I think they've mitigated the risk to this point to such a great degree that it's not really that concern, especially with the schedule. The schedule really works to their favor.
No Kent State this year, Ty.
No Kent State.
Nothing to worry about. No Kent State scares.
Yeah. So look, I don't want to pan Georgia and just say, I will pencil them into the title game in the playoff again. But
right.
I kind of feel that way. It's boring. It's like a great golfer. Yeah. Great golfers are regimented, and the reason that they're great is because they avoid the boneheaded stuff. They make par instead of double bogey.
Sure.
Georgia's just good at that now. They're good at that now. And they're not going to go out there and do the boneheaded thing. Kirby Smart has kind of just bred that out of them at this point. And with the talent they've got and the roster in front of them, and schedule in front of them, I have no reason to think they're not hitting that over of 11.5, going 12-0, and going back to the playoff.
Man, I just think college football is hard. And I understand what Georgia's done the past couple of years. But, we had this conversation about USC in, 2007. There has never been a defense as deep with 5. They lose to Jaquiz Rogers, right? Yeah. It's a weird sport. And so, I bake weirdness into Georgia, into Ohio State. Ohio State losing to Iowa. I kind of want to bake that in, which is why I don't love taking an over that can only hit going 12-0.